Hello, welcome, good evening. Twishies and Rebound here on the Upstreamedia's channel on Love It Live show. Welcome, I hope you're well. I love that new graphic Reaper's not going there, so it's all the bits come together for one hour. I hope you're all well. If you're new to the channel, give it a like or subscribe, and to stay tuned to all the latest shows on this channel. Upstreamedia during the season live stream all the NBL D1 home games for Thames State Cavaliers, and then this off season I've been doing some great content with many hosts like myself, CJ, or the guys at High Rollers. Do some really great content, so be sure to check that out if you're coming here for the first time. So tonight, I just do a bit of the latest news, but have a little stat look. As I say, many people watch the show now. I'm quite into learning a bit more about the stats. I bought a book, Basketball Paper, and also been looking at other resources to develop my skills this off season. I thought I'd just start. I think there's always sometimes that pressure for people to use this time to develop yourselves, and I think everyone's journey is different, so don't feel the pressure too much if it's too much at this time, but also keep doing what you're doing if you're out there like ourselves, put stuff out there because it's a great off season for basketball content. So for me, the concept of this was a really good idea because I say, especially this week, I'm back at work. I'm not always able to get all the content as it comes out. Things I might miss or might get overloaded with other stuff coming out at the same time. So tonight's news is more a coaching perspective. So I thought I'd start at the top with Nottingham McDonald's Hoods replacing their head coach. They've got Ben Stanley in. People know Ben knew he was a player for the Hoods, and Ben was a coach for their second team. Had a few years out, but was back in the hot chair for the Hoods, and I look forward to seeing how he gets on in the new season. When people say, well, what's happened to Ryan Wesley? Because obviously he was head coach this season, just gone. And he's gone down to NBLD2 North, Derbyshire Spartans. And both from a board level and a coaching level, it seems the objectives are very clear, and it's to get the club to NBLD1. And they're hoping Coach Wesley can repeat the heroics with the Hoods and also bring that D1 experience and knowledge to the board. And I've said it before, I think the teams in Derby are definitely ones to watch out with because they have Spartans also sometimes have players from Derby Trailblazers academies, and the Derby Trailblazers seem to be doing really well this season, and might be a Derby 1 and 2 in NBLD1 next season, just like how we've got Essex Hearts, Leopards, and Essex Rebels to be in the same division this coming season, whenever that will start. And obviously, no news has happened since the last time I came to talk about the webinars. And I think we just got to really play it by ear. And I think that they are obviously aiming to start on time, as I mentioned, I think last week's news episode. But also they're objectively planning for November or January is maybe a little bit more realistic. With regards to all the lockdown restrictions being released in terms of pubs, all four for Basketball England, British Basketball Federation, BBL, and I think the NBL2 all signed a letter to really apply more pressure to see sports halls open, even if it's just for the elite players. And I know they're really working hard to try and get the clubs and league back to some normality. Also, there's so much content out there. Michael Darlis had to mic'd up. I need to attach those episodes. So he's using footage from NBL games. I think the first one was a courtesy of this channel, and he was actually with Ryan Wesley. That turns out for episode 1, and they break down the Hoods and Thames State Cavaliers. If you're looking at other podcasts, there's been quite a few this week. The Juice Pod's another one, and Chuck Do on the ISO podcast had Jeremy Soshan on this week. I'm so behind, so I'm back to work last week, sort of shadowing in a new role, sort of doing the COVID swabs in terms of telephone support, ranging at all turns. So I'm definitely behind on my basketball content, but still enjoying it when I get the time. I thought what I said there from James Ostra. Oh yeah. So obviously we had Chuck Dewey as one of my first guests on the show, and I'm really excited to say he's going to come back on because when he came on the show the first time around, it was before he was done the ISO podcast. I knew he was doing something similar. I know he's got aspirations to take that further next season, but I've really enjoyed it when I've had Juice Pod on or Chris and Everything Chris or other content creators on. So I definitely want to bring him back on and talk about his episodes. Just I really like the content he's doing. It's promoting the game we all love, and there's nothing wrong by having more of us out here doing this great work. Obviously, some of the players might or may not be doing it next season due to playing roles. It's great to have that content out there, keep us all interested, and hopefully attract a wider audience. So I just want to say you should great. So yes, that's really interesting. For the week ahead, if you've seen the wrap on social medias, I've got former Reading's Rockets player, Danny Carter. I really look forward to chatting to him. He's had a really great, distinguished career within British basketball. Probably one of the best players, homegrown players to play in the NBL. Really good to talk to him and get his experience. I really love enjoying hearing everyone's stories. We had a great one on Friday with TJ Henson, the NBL D1 points lead of the season was on. We had a great chat. All things basketball. We talked about NBA, talked about his journey, talked about this season for Leicester. We talked about some competitive teams and players he played against this season. So I really enjoyed that one. It was great watching. I think as I come on air, it's got over 170 views already within a few days. So I imagine most of you are like, Chris, yep, I've seen that one. What's next? So obviously Danny Carr's on Tuesday. Day off Wednesday, but CJ Lee being on with another episode. They call me coach. I'm a little bit behind his, but I'm looking forward to watching that tomorrow. We're watching the one on Wednesday too. So lots of great content. But that leads me on to Thursday. And for me, the guy I got on this kind of pedigree of the person I want on, Josh Okudei, former under 18 GB player. When I say the kind of pedigree player, I mean the guys that are just starting their journey, promoting them, because I feel a lot of players we come to watch, we don't often, unless you're the players or super fans clubs, we don't tend to know that much about the players that are inside the game, especially ones that have no longer with us but are playing in America. I think it's really great to have those guys come on, talk basketball, talk about being in the GB under-18s and other part of his journey, and just promote the British basketball scene. I say eagle-eyed viewers will see I wear my Too Good Always Balling shirt. Obviously, that's a great brand and a great initiative to support their main shirts to donate money towards the COVID appeal and other charities. So give Always Balling a check, and they're just a great work. And then next week, I said we've got Chuck on Tuesday. We're yet to confirm for Thursday, but at some point we'll be getting Michael Darley back on. I really love that idea of having two coaches come on, talking about the decisions that went in that game while the viewers can rewatch it. I think that's really great. I think any content you put out there where you're, I don't want to say reusing, but you're finding novel ways to use that media, I think it's always great, because I love how the NBA have got a catalogue of all the season's games. And I'd say I'm quite a big fan of the NBA as a whole, but even myself, I've not watched many of those games back after results gone. But actually have a concept where you've got those is really refreshing, and also gives another reason to watch those games. One second, my charger's dying. Sorry, 1 second, my charger's dying. Sorry, back in. So yeah, so we'll get him on in the coming weeks and talk a bit about his show. So I think I often find when there's other content creators out there doing some great work, it inspires me to think a bit outside the box. And that's led me to tonight's show. So obviously people who follow me on Rebound on social media will see that we were going to break down the last game in the British basketball calendar this season. For me, it feels really hard to believe that was over 100 years ago when the BBL advertised that. In fact, some people will say it felt like a year ago. I think that's more just the psychological effect that COVID's having. But for me, even the potential fact that it was a really great ad for the game, but also as someone I've watched it a few times, it was a high caliber game, really entertaining, really close. And I thought, while I'm learning about stats, looking at other stats, I thought maybe I'd break down that game and look at some of the key stats, some of the players who had some performances in some areas but weren't taken up by box draw or live stats. So, pardon me. So, obviously, most of you probably know, but if you don't, box draw is the website you see all the stats. So you have like the points leaderboard, you have maybe like top 5, but you'd have rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. Sorry, and you that's really good because it gives you a really great perspective of who got the most points, who got the most rebounds, who got the most assists, so on and so forth. But it doesn't tell you, like, so for example, like I think it was Dow's just, let me just double check. Well, like Elliot Sense, for example, got 26 points, but then it doesn't tell you how well he shot the ball or how many 2-point shots he made or how many 3-point shots he made. But if that's, it's just a basic platform to see like an overview of the game. But obviously, if you want to look a bit more in depth, even on the FIBA site, you can do that with the live stats. So it'll have the shoot percentages, rebounds, breakdown defensive and offensive rebounds, assists, steals, blocks against, fouls against, you name it. Those sort of simple things that's on there. But for me, in my journey, I feel like they don't tell the full story. And I'm always very wary of use of stats because I think even if you find a good stat, there's caveats or negatives to it, but you can't really take too much from. But I always think the more you learn, the better it's going to help you in terms of understanding the game, but also appreciating the game. And for me, I feel when I go watch a game, you either have, if you watch a senior men's game, for example, the fans, it's quite a broad spectrum of fans in that arena pretty much most nights. You have maybe the under-18s who know the basketball game inside out. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you may have a family who just take their kid for the first time and a much lower entry point, but maybe those under-18 players are. And also you have some people in between sort of try and enjoy the game's entertainment, but also want to learn more about it. And I try to thought each week or every so often I'll look at a game, break it down. The idea was maybe when I wasn't working because I say it took a bit of time going through the stats. I feel like that. I think it's a GIF where it's got one of the guys in Lord of the Rings they're trying to work out all the maths. So some of them are quite difficult. And I think going back to the book I said recently, put basketball on paper. I think Coach Tuna was very wise to say, just take my time with it because it is very interesting, but also very, very intellectual. So it can be quite difficult to grasp the knowledge. So I'm taking my time with it. I'm enjoying it, but it takes a few reads. That has to be said. So I've talked about defense before. And I've talked a bit about how maybe some players really interest me in the defensive end, especially when I'm watching the game. Things like stats wise, taking the foul or hustling, things you don't tend to see on box draw live stats. So the first one was true shooting percentage, and For me, until this week, I didn't know what shooting percentage was. I've seen it in a few graphics, seen it on the NBA TV. Sorry, bit of a cough. Um, so, for people who don't know basketball, true shoot percentage is basically the advanced stat that measures a player's efficiency at shooting. Um, it tends to be a bit more accurate, as I was saying. On live stats, you'll see free throw percentage, 2 point percentage, and 3 point percentage. Unless you sort of go down, player X made 8 out of 17 threes or 2 out of 10 twos, you're not really sure how well they shot. You can easily look at something sort of got 8% field goal percentage, but realise that all 20 of the shots were 2-pointers, which is still a great thing, but you can see someone may have a 50% pursuit percentage, but they're all free. So actually, if they had 10, you do the maths a bit more, you realise actually just someone shooting less productive doesn't make it that they're a worse shooter. I hope that makes sense. So I was looking at that at the game, and I mentioned it earlier how players broke it. I think I'll start with the points actually. I think that'll make it a bit easier. So then you find some of the FIBA stats for the game's quite accessible. So when you look at true shoot percentage, I'll trade it off against the actual points. So for the Eagles, Ramon Fletcher led all straws 29. Dallas Stefano got 23. CJ Nets got 21. Monty Glass got 10. And Drew Last got 7. Then for the Casuals, you got Elliot Sanders 26. Ian Smith 18. Travis Charles 18. Trayvon White 12. And Brendan Okwonko 12. But if you went to look at the true shoot percentage, because then that's judging the field goal percentage, the free throw percentage, and also the 3-point shot. So let's look at all those shots. Just what I was trying to say earlier, without picking a player X and get, say, 26 points, wow, he had an amazing game. But let's say he shot a 40 shot, and that's quite a huge number, but you get the idea. But just because someone's got a high points, it doesn't mean they shot better than me, someone got 12 points. You don't know how. You can really look in depth. I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes, but I think like you could get something from stats, but maybe you didn't get from other stats. And obviously, all stats have a plus and minus. I always say, ready stats, take them with a pinch of salt. So as you remember, I said that the likes of Dallas Stefano, Sentence, Trayvon Wright, Raymond Fletcher, they all did really well in terms of points, and that's how they ended true shoot percentage. So, so I went in the wrong order. I was going to do it the other way around, but I'll do it this way anyway. So Dallas Stefano got 61, and this is on 56, and they shot really well, and that came across in the points, but sometimes it doesn't always come across in the points. For example, Brendan Okwonko made the top 5 out of all the players in the squad, but I did mention his name when I was reading out the leaders for the cash. I think he. Well, I did actually came 5th, but what I'm saying is because he came a bit higher, but he did actually in terms of points for. I think for me, the aim of this, if you're totally new to stats, straight away go, that's how many interested to read a bit more about that, and it sort of develops our knowledge really. To say for me, this is all new, enjoyed learning it. And I hope something out of this video you take away if all that's great too. So the next one was effective field goal percentage. So I've seen this quite a few times when teams have promoted a player and go, such effective field goal percentage. So I thought, okay, what's me? I read the book, read a bit of internet, checked a few sites. So it's basically the effective field goal percentage. I really like this one because, as I was alluding to in live stats, you just see someone's got 60 2-point percentage and a 50% 3-point percentage. And depending on where that player sat, if someone had less of 2 but more 3, it's hard to really take away who had the better night shooting. So basically this takes that away, so it's you to see instantly without having to try to do the maths, work out how many shots they miss, how many minutes they're on. This essentially measures their field goal percentage, but uh, acknowledging, but obviously if they shot that 3-point shot, it meant more points to them and their team. So it's really interesting. So the guys who did well this obviously shot the 3-point shot well. But the guy who came top was Ramon Fletcher. He went 3 for 7 for 3. He's probably one of the best 3-point shooters on the day. Elliot Centre, so I said did really well. Wasn't so high, but came second. I think it was. It's interesting because it doesn't equate for everything. So obviously Elliot Centre is really well, but he shot quite a lot. Whereas, as I mentioned, Ramon Fletcher, because he shot 3, he got that rated a bit higher, a bit quicker. But it's really interesting. The same few guys were doing well with both shooting percentages, like Ian Smith, CJ Getty, Stasford, all the similar level in terms of shooting. And for me, that's what I love about stats. It sort of goes a little bit deeper, and I think it just highlights how close the game was. We were talking that not one team dominates one stat. You have, I think, sort of a 2-3 split with most teams and most 2-3 split for the players in top 5. So, 2 players for Casuals, 3 for the Eagles, or vice versa. So it was a very good game. So I've talked a bit about the shooting, and I kind of want to cover the defensive. So I know I've talked about that before, either with the players or in previous videos. So I'll quickly do this first one, because I know I've done it before. So the assist to turnovers. I really like this because it comes under a term of advanced stats, but actually isn't too complicated to be easily realised who had the best performance from it. Essentially, divide the player's assists by turnovers. So if someone got 8 assists at one turnover, they would have a rating of 8, and so on and so forth. And it was interesting because players who maybe didn't do well at other stuff, or maybe I don't want to say didn't do well, but maybe their effort wasn't shown as much, really showed in this one. So 2 players in the whole game had no turnovers. That was amazing. Brendan Quadra had 4 assists with no turnovers. That was a really good performance of him. And I think sometimes we get quite focused on the scoring element of game, but actually if someone's actually able to make assists without doing a turnover, that's equally impressive. It's not the best stats, so it's quite simple. You can look at other ways, sorry. But it's a good marker on how good someone's ball handling is, because obviously they create opportunities, but at the same hand, so he shoots the pan, didn't sort of lose the ball. And then likes Elliot Dads, as said about Drew Laster, also got 1 assist, no turnovers. But and then guys did some high output, so you got Elliot Dads, who was on the show recently, 8 assists, 1 no turnover, and then obviously the MVP, CJ Gates as well, with 7 assists to 1 turnover. I think sometimes if you have that high amount of assists with little turnover, it's easy to see why they got the MVP. But also, again, I say it was very close with a lot of players. They had Ian Smith, Wadley, Glasgow, both on 5 assists and 1 turnover. So I think if you've got 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 players all doing really, really well, that is, again shows how high quality of a game it is. And that's one of the main reasons I like the stats, because sometimes you can interpret a stat and it makes you realise that it was a really good game. Especially to say about like between 6 players, they shared 4 turnovers. That's pretty amazing, I think. But for reading that, I was like, I'd love to find something a bit more in depth that really looks at the players' ball handling skill, maybe sort of a bit more comprehensive. So I found one that was Hollinger's assist ratio. It's basically like the passing decision making stat, if you want to say. So basically, calculates the amount of possessions a player had, but resulted into assist. So, and for me, again, the guys who did really well on the stat before, again did really well here. There wasn't much differentiation between the same people. Any of that's who came um, third was first this time, mainly because I say even Brendan was 4-0 and it had 4 more assists in him. So obviously it was only at higher, but actually what really intrigued me more I learned about the stat was the lack of differential between maybe the guy who came in second, one who came in fifth. Sort of also collaborated with the assist to turnover ratio, sort of showed how both stats really stood up and showing how well these guys played. And I think it was a really good game. I've watched the game a few times now, and I really enjoy it. I think for a game that was the last game, and especially played under some really challenging circumstances, I think really shows the quality of and commitment of both teams. Got a really great spectacle, and I'm super excited for next season. Hopefully, it'll come back soon, but I'm also open. Half expected to be November, January, as I said about the webinars. I hope you enjoyed it. I say, for me, I definitely know last few weeks, especially going back to work, not being able to catch all news as often as I would. Definitely so behind on podcasts and other viewings. I got a day off at the weekend, so got like a watch playlist, all the podcasts catch up on, especially rewatch some of the ones I've done already myself. That's everything from me. I'm back tomorrow, 8:30 with former Reading Rockets player Danny Carter. Wednesday, I believe we've got Coach CJ on the show. He's another great guest, and then they sort of talk a bit about coaching. I've really loved these conversations had with the esteemed coaches. Really honest insight. Couple of shows even gone into decision making in the game, so they'd be really good to watch. And then on Thursday, I said forward GB under 18, Josh Ogundele. Really look forward to catching up with him. He's someone whose journey I've been really intrigued by. Play for GB under 18s and going that well trodden route to the USA to in the pursuit of his goals. So that's everything for me. I say stay safe. I myself was too busy staying in as per the always balling branded tea. As I keep saying safe, I know it might be a tricky time moment as we further and further in this lockdown, but I think we're getting there, and hopefully there will be more basketball talk soon. Stay safe, take care everyone, and I'll see you all again tomorrow. Goodbye from me. Goodbye from the channel.